Raze Cromwell was not born a monster. Monsters are made, not born. His childhood was a canvas painted with shades of grey and black, orphaned, abandoned, left to the harsh streets of a city that had no pity for the weak. He learned early that survival was a game with no rules, only consequences. Kindness was a currency he could not afford, so he bartered in fear and cunning instead. He discovered magic not as a gift, but as a weapon. A tool to carve out a space for himself in a world that wanted him gone. It was a desperate, hungry magic, fed by his own bitterness. His power grew not from scholarly pursuit in grand libraries, but from the raw, untamed energies of the world. He consumed forbidden knowledge like a starving man devours bread. Each incantation, each dark ritual pushed him further away from the boy he once was. He became a legend, a whispered name in shadowed alleys, the Dark Magus. A title earned through blood, sacrifice and an unyielding will to never be powerless again. He was not evil for the sake of it. No, his was a calculated cold fury against the very system that had created him. A world that celebrated the powerful while crushing the forgotten. The world he knew was governed by the so-called Supreme Magus, 5 paragons of magical purity and order. They saw him as a threat, a disruption to their pristine world. They never saw the starving child. They only saw the shadow he cast. They decried his methods as heretical, his power as a corruption. But what was their power if not a tool to maintain their own dominance? They spoke of balance and light, yet their light cast the darkest of shadows where creatures like the young Raze were left to fester and grow into something they could no longer control. His existence was an inconvenient truth, so he embraced the darkness they accused him of wielding. He made it his own. He found strength in the very things they feared. The fear he inspired became his shield. The whispers of his name became his army. He built a fortress of solitude and power, not to conquer the world, but to be left alone by it. But the world, especially the part of it ruled by the 5 Supreme Magus, does not like to leave such anomalies unchecked. They saw a nail that stuck out, and they prepared their hammers to strike it down, oblivious to the fact that they were hammering a shard of glass into their own heart. The attack was inevitable. It came without warning, a storm of righteous fury and blinding light. The 5 Supreme Magus, in all their sanctimonious glory, descended upon his dark citadel. They were a symphony of destruction. Their magic was pure, powerful, and utterly relentless. They tore through his wards as if they were cobwebs, their spells of light and fire erasing years of his painstaking work. They did not come for a trial, they did not come for surrender, they came for eradication. They saw him not as a man, but as a disease to be purged from the world, a simple, brutal calculation. Raze fought back with everything he had. He was a cornered animal, lashing out with the desperate ferocity of the doomed. His dark magic, chaotic and raw, clashed against their synchronized assaults. The air crackled with power, the very fabric of reality groaning under the strain. But he was 1 against 5, 1 lifetime of scraped-together knowledge against generations of established power. For every spell he cast, 5 answered. For every shadow he summoned, a sunburst incinerated it. He was bleeding power, his reserves draining with every passing moment. Exhaustion was a cold hand gripping his soul. He was pushed to the brink, his defenses shattered, his body aching. The faces of the Supreme Magus were masks of grim determination, convinced of their own divine right. In their eyes, he saw no mercy, only judgment. It was in that moment of absolute desperation that he remembered the final, forbidden text. A ritual so dangerous, so unstable, that even he had hesitated to study it closely. A spell that did not just bend reality, but shattered it and escaped through the cracks. It was a one-way door to anywhere or nowhere. A final desperate gamble. With the last of his strength, he began the incantation. The words were poison on his tongue, the symbols burning themselves into the air around him. The Supreme Magus realized too late what he was doing. They surged forward, their combined power, a tidal wave meant to crush him. But the spell was already complete. A tear in the world opened, a screaming vortex of colour and chaos. It was not an escape, it was an amputation. He threw himself into the abyss, leaving his world, his life and his enemies behind, the sound of their fury swallowed by the silence between worlds. The landing was not soft. It was a violent expulsion, a birth into a world he did not recognize. Raze found himself on his hands and knees, the world spinning. The air tasted wrong. It was thick with chemicals and something metallic. He looked up, and his breath caught in his throat. There was no sky, only a perpetual twilight pierced by towering monoliths of steel and glass. Rivers of light flowed along their surfaces, neon signs in languages he couldn't read screaming silently into the night. Flying vehicles, like silent metal beasts, zipped between the colossal structures. This was not his world. This was a nightmare of order and technology. This city was a symphony of overwhelming sensations. The constant hum of machinery, the distant wail of sirens, the chatter of a million unseen lives. It was a place of astonishing advancement, yet it felt hollow, devoid of the natural energies he knew. He observed the people. They were strong, agile. He saw them in back alleys, engaging in combat. They called it martial arts. Their movements were precise, deadly, a dance of physical perfection. They could break bones with a single strike, but it was just that, physical. There was no magic, no flicker of arcane energy in their fists. They were masters of the body, but blind to the soul of the world. He was an anachronism, a relic of a forgotten age dropped into a future he could never have imagined. These people, with their advanced technology and physical prowess, were children when it came to the true nature of power. They fought with muscle and steel, oblivious to the currents of magic that still flowed, however faintly, beneath the